Welcome to Dunya Visions, a video podcast where we talk to ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Toby Dunya. In this episode, I talk to Dustin Waters. Dustin is the commissioner of the Daegu Softball League in Daegu, South Korea. For the last 5 years, he has been responsible for the day-to-day running and organization of this league in the community. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the history of the DSL exactly. How long has it been running for?
It started in 2007.
Right.
There was a little bit of an expatriate community here in Daegu that missed some of the activities of home. And they started a select four people really were the main drive in starting the softball league. And initially, I think they only had 4 teams. Each of those founding people got a team, and it grew in popularity. It grew to 6 teams, to 8 teams, and even to 10 teams at one point in the height of its popularity. And then, with kind of some of the exodus of some of the expatriate community, foreigners, non-Korean people here in Daegu, the league has begun to shrunk. Some of us have gotten a little bit older, decided to do other things with our time. But for whatever, the league still is standing strong. It fluctuates, and depending on how many people sign up, we have different number of teams, but it's still going, and we're proud of it.
Good. 9 seasons, that's 9 years. Was there ever a time where you did 2 seasons per year?
No, we've only done 1 season per year, but because of, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but because of COVID last year, we had to do it at a different time. Usually it's in the spring. Last season, we were not able to do it in the spring, but we're able to do it in the fall.
Is there a specific reason why? Because I'm sure is there a specific reason why there's only been only 1 season every year? Or was that a preferred choice? There's a specific reason why people have chosen that particular time?
Well, baseball, which is what softball is based off of, traditionally is played. It starts in the spring and goes into the summer. Yeah. Baseball has a much longer season, being a professional sport. They go into the fall. And if you're lucky, you can go into the winter if you're good enough, or almost the winter. But with softball, with the Daegu Softball League, a lot of our players, a lot of our athletes are teachers at university or other private institutes that go on vacation in the summer. So we needed to have the season end in time so that these teachers could go on their much earned vacations.
That's nice. That's really good. So in your experience, having been a player and having had 9 years of the DSL, how do you feel it's changed over the years?
It's become much more tame. It's become much more adult. And I think that has to do with kind of the average age of the person in it, of the people in it. When I joined 9 years ago, I was 9 years younger than I am now. And so I was in my mid-20s, and the people around were in our mid-20s. And a lot of us worked at these after-school institutes called Hagwons here. And so you didn't even have to start school till 2 or 3 p.m., which meant you could just, on a Sunday when we would play, you could just stay out there having a lot of fun for a lot more time. There wasn't any constraint to get back home. People weren't driving. Most of our fields were in a easily accessible region of town. And so people just went wild. And absolutely wild. A lot of stories I wouldn't want to advertise on any podcast ever. But needless to say, we got kicked off of a lot of fields because of some of our antics. We weren't invited back in subsequent years. So we've been a little more careful in what we encourage our players to do and how we take care of the places that we're invited to play at, that we pay to play at mostly. And just kind of try not to burn bridges because there's only so many of them out there. And we've also gotten older and lost people to this and that, moving back home or deciding to do something else with their time. And so the league's it's ebbed and flowed.
Yeah, I have to admit, for me personally, because I obviously played in the league as well, and it was I wasn't accustomed. I didn't even know much about softball as a sport. I think in England, we have rounders, which is, I mean, in theory, comes very, very close to what we do in softball, but it was kind of a good practice for me to get involved into a very different sport, very different sport event than I've ever done before. But what do you think is the importance of like a community like sport, like the DSL in Daegu, Korea?
I think anytime you have a league, you are bringing people together to do something that those people enjoy doing.
Yeah.
In Daegu, there's the added level of we are all, most of us, 95% of the league is not from Korea. So we have this added layer of being in a foreign to us, foreign land, and bringing people together, kind of using base or softball as the excuse. Now, I would say that there does need to be that excuse, because I don't think people would just, I don't like, we've had times where the league was, 10 teams, each team has 12 people. You can do the math. That's 120 people at least showing up before you add significant others, pets, kids at some point. So a massive amount of people all showing up to one place wouldn't happen if it was just, hey, let's go drink beer somewhere. There needs to be that excuse. And also I think competition, I think, plays into it. You could be winning something, you could, best your friends. But I really think the community is what it is. It's almost like church without religion. It's an excuse to show up and share something together.
DSL is like church without religion. I mean, it's been nice to have a community too, I think part of it, for me and Marie, it's been nice to kind of extend friendships beyond what we kind of had before, and to know people from different areas and different backgrounds, and everybody getting together. It's kind of like building a little bit of a family away from home, if you like. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. And it's just a matter of being a little homesick. Really, it has nothing to do with our host country right now. It's just a matter of, it's great to go listen to the music I listened to when I grew up and party the way that I used to party. I think you're a great example too of somebody who, you knew a lot of the people that were in the league, and you joined the league, not really knowing too much about softball, admittedly so, athletic person. And I don't want to speak for you, but you seem to really get in there, make a ton of friends, and become noticeably better from year to year. I don't know if you enjoyed it more and more from year to year as a result of being better and knowing more people. But actually something that you said at your wedding reception that kind of touched on the community that we have here, how lucky we are to have this community. It's something that I value more than my own time and my own money, and plays into why I put so much energy into making sure this league exists, and it's for the community.
I loved it. I actually secretly miss it in some ways, because actually for me, one of the reasons why I don't know, how can I layer it up? I think it was kind of like a twofold thing. It was the idea of actually getting the excuse of getting together and seeing people. It was not necessarily the alcohol thing, wasn't a big thing for me, at least in my mind. And then there was this thing, which was, I'm getting to do a sport I knew so little. I mean, classically speaking, my first ever at bat in the DSL was probably my biggest mess up of all times. I wish it was recorded where I just took the bat, went, missed a few, and then once I had that feel, swung the bat as hard as I could. There was no technique, there was nothing there. There was just pure power. I just want to smash the ball. And then I ended up running around the whole thing, never touching a single base. And
oh yeah.
Never touching a single base. I remember getting to home and I'm like, did I do it? Did I do it? And then I see 2 or 3 captains all rushing in the middle to the umpire, and just like everyone is yelling and shouting. And I'm like, what's going on? So for me, the idea of like going from someone who knew very little about the rules,
Mm-hmm.
what skills were required to go from making the biggest possible, mess up of all time in sports, at least in my experience, to learning the skills slowly and to be moved from, from position to, from the outer positions to the inner positions. And
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I loved that development, that athletic improvement.
I
Yeah.
want to say you started by saying you secretly miss it. The league not so secretly misses you. And like you said, we take in people who don't know what they're doing. They make these mistakes. And then the part of that discussion on the field there with you not touching any of the bases was, what do we do about it? Because how competitive are we? What are we here for? And so, yes, he didn't touch the bases. And yes, that's a part of softball, but come on, we're just here to have fun. We're here to that's the counter argument. It's just like, how much of a stickler do you want to be? We're just having a good time here. He's new. Let him go,
So that was wild. It was wild because I remember saying people like, obviously the team that we were playing at that time, I remember it was, I think the captain for that team, I didn't know that person and that person didn't know me. So to them it was just like, this is a competition. Like, where do we draw the line? And I remember people saying like, no, it shouldn't count. That shouldn't. And I'm like, I may never get to hit a home run again. This is it. This is it. This is my chance. But yeah, grateful to the league and everybody and people basically allowed me to do that and put it as a learning experience. And I'm just like, so yeah, I do miss that. I do miss that. Like, also the other thing that I actually miss as well is the number of people that approach me after that to really give me tips on like, this is what you do and this is the sport rule. And like, I remember Woody saying to me like, I want to coach you on this. I want to try, especially when I moved to playing third base, and it was he was constantly in my ears trying to give me those pointers on like, how do you handle yourself in this position. So I really
was that your first team?
No, my first team was I should have actually worn the hat just to prove that it was the Beavers.
Right. Yeah. It was Mike Miller's
team. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was an experience.
Good introduction to the league. Well, yeah, I think that's one of the things as the commissioner of the league that I've seen over the years. I've seen the league also go from almost hyper competitive, or at least containing hyper competitive elements that were turning people off. And I've also seen the league just be completely sloppy, and that turned people off. And so kind of striking the right tone. But ultimately, I will always try to strike the fun tone. I want you to be safe running around the bases and missing them, because you weren't trying to pull anything over our heads.
I didn't know what I was doing.
But yeah, I try not to encourage that hyper competitiveness in the league.
Yeah. So it's been nice. So let's say, what if people join the league? What do you think they should be looking forward to? What should they kind of expect from the league?
Yeah. I think for the most part, I've never been able to overhype it. I've never been able to say to anybody anything. I could say to you, it will be the best thing you ever do in Korea. I've said this to people, and typically they come back and say, yeah, you know what, you were right. So I could either hype it from just like the hangout aspect, make a lot of friends, or the networking aspect of it. I got jobs because I was in the league, and I know many people who have gotten jobs from just being in the league and knowing other people in the league. And there's your in to, if you just want to get trashed and be with people that won't really mind you being really drunk even during a softball game, that's fine too. If you want to just like dust off the cobwebs and go get some exercise in, and you're there from like a health standpoint, then it's also going to be fine. You're not going to get a great workout in there. I mean, unless you wanted to, you could run laps while you're at it. But I think kind of whatever you're looking for as an expatriate in Korea, it's not a great immersion program. If you're looking to like study Korean and get in and see the country, although we do play in beautiful fields, you can see the countryside. For the most part, it scratches kind of whatever itch. It could be a wide variety of itches you may have. The DSL is kind of there to as like a catch-all for just people enjoying their time.
Has there ever been a time where like a particular year where the DSL didn't run at all?
No, it is crazy. So now, starting in 2007, it is now 2021. What's that? 14, 15 years. Next year, I think will be our 15th year if we do it, which I'm assuming we will. I'm guessing we will. 14 straight years, every single year we've always done it. And we've had a couple years where it wasn't obvious that it was going to happen. COVID was really the one year that we thought, 2020, because it hit Korea in the spring, which is right when we were starting to make all our arrangements, and nobody wanted to be around anybody. And fields didn't want to give us fields. I mean, nobody, it just wasn't happening. Yeah. And so we didn't do it. We couldn't do it. And then we just kicked it down the road, and we thought, you know what, it's a loss. We're just not going to be able to do it this year. We'll do it next year in the spring. And there was such a groundswell of messages, people saying, hey, what if we just did it and we didn't advertise it? What if we just had like, it was like a few people who are, we won't advertise it outside of the group. Maybe just like a few people, like 2 or 3 teams. We do round robin tournaments, whatever. And so me and some of the other captains thought, can we actually do it? And we just kind of put one foot in front of the other as if we were going to, like, we called their bluff basically, and ended up with 4 full teams. And it was a great season. We ended up playing in the fall. And a lot of the, you play in the spring means you're playing into the heat. It starts cold and then it gets hot in it. And Korea has a nice, warm, humid, hot summer that you're playing your championship games in. And you could be playing 2 or 3 games in one day to win the championship game. And it's frankly miserable. It just saps you. And there was something nice about playing in the fall, where we started when it was warm and it got progressively cooler and cooler and cooler. And by the end, when we're playing all these like, double headers and triple header games, hey, the weather outside is pretty nice. Some people, wearing long pants, you see a hoodie here and there. So there were definitely some things that were nice about the fall. And there are a lot of people now who want us to have a spring and fall league. I think the reason why I'm inclined to just do it once a year is just the sheer amount of work that goes into it. And I can do it once a year, but even by the end of a season, I'm really fed up with it. I am not enjoying it as much as maybe I should be by the end of the season. And I need that. I need those 7 months to be away from it.
You need a 7-month vacation from the DSL.
It's a full-time job. I am literally thinking about it from start to finish, weeks before it starts till the championship game is finished. I'm thinking about it constantly. You and I have shared offices.
Yes, we have. I was just thinking during, especially, was it last year? Last year when you guys did it in the fall, right?
Right.
One of the things that I remember feeling, I was like, wow, like Dustin must be crazy to try and pull this off, and all the people that are doing it. And I think part of it, it wasn't because I think it's the idea that first of all, it wasn't the best time because of COVID. And second of all, this is a mostly foreigner community getting together playing softball. And this was something that I was keeping my fingers crossed. Like, if there was an outbreak associated with that league, what would have been the repercussion of that? Like, did that scare you at all? Was that at the back of your mind thinking, because one of the reasons I'm saying this is because, COVID was everywhere, obviously, but I think part of it was, if something happened within a community, as small as our community, for example, I think the backlash to it, in my mind at least, it would have been way more severe than, let's say, something happened in some random bar out there or somewhere. Did that play in your mind in the decision making at all?
I was aware, I was aware of that, and I would say it did not bother me, or it didn't concern me as much as it concerned people around me. There were a lot of people around me who made that very, very strong point, um, who all ended up playing, except for you. Um,
Yeah.
but I knew that that could happen, and I don't know if if it was optimism or just willful ignorance, or just like, we'll cross, if we get to that bridge, we'll cross it then.
Mm.
But I didn't. We've lived in Korea for a number of years, and there are people that have kind of a pessimistic outlook on how they think Koreans view us.
Mm.
And there are a lot of non-Koreans here who will think that they're being victimized or sought out, or yeah, I don't know how to say this, but I don't feel that per se. So I think the idea that like they would have come down harder on us, or that would have somehow destroyed the foreigner community here, or the league would have been destroyed, or that we would have like made the papers for it. I never believed that would be the case. I thought like if there was one or two confirmed cases in the league, it would be bad. It wouldn't be good. But I didn't think it would be that bad. So I just, like I said, I basically just, the people who wanted to do it, I called their bluff. And the people who didn't want to do it were free not to do it. But also, we had all these kind of like stated rules that we would enforce. We didn't really enforce that too much, but we just said, wear your masks, you know, all the things that you're supposed to do.
Mm.
But then we just took it upon the league to actually enforce it themselves. And that a lot of that was just cover our own ass. But I mean, thank God, no cases that season. I mean, we're not playing, you know, we're not playing basketball. It's an outdoor sport. For the most part, people are distanced anyway. I know there is some drunken hugging that goes on.
Right. Yeah.
But last season and this season, the two COVID seasons, we have not had a single case come through the league. And that's, I mean, it could be Russian roulette. It's not to say that there won't be, you know, but there hasn't been. So thank God for that, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's you're right that in some ways you have to remain optimistic even in the decision making, and you can't always just play to the fear of something bad happening.
Yeah.
And anything bad could have happened. And I know that living in Korea, even for myself, over the last 10 years, there's been stories in the papers, and we had stories of things happening in Itaewon, in Seoul, and so you know not
Yeah.
everybody reacted positively to that, but I wouldn't particularly say that the whole country was against the foreigners, the foreign community for that. So yeah, I'm actually, in some ways, I was one of those people who I was kind of scared and worried about potential cases popping up in the league, and then what that would have looked like, what that would have appeared. And so that was my fear, for example, getting the better of me. But at the same time, I'm kind of happy that the whole season went by, 2 seasons went by, and everybody was safe and people were taking precautions. And I wondered if the fact that there were only 4 teams, every time that I played, there were at least 8 teams or more in the league. And the fact that there were fewer teams in the league, whether that was actually something that also helped, but I guess we'll never know. But it's the positive
Yeah.
outcome is what we should probably
Just to really quick touch on something you said just a second ago before I move on. Like your decision not to play is a fine decision, and a decision many people made. It didn't have to play out that there weren't any cases. There could have been cases. It just didn't happen to pan out that way. So I'm happy that people sat it out. And also the repercussions, not just on the league, but on you personally. If you had caught COVID, what would that have meant for everything that you do in your life? You know? So it was a large decision to make. To move on and just talk about, that was the first time since the league started that we were back down to 4 teams, and it was quiet. I mean, we played we played 2 games a day. We played, two teams played. We rested for a little bit. Then the other 2 teams played, and we rotated a bunch. So we played each other a bunch. But the energy level of that league was some of the lowest energy I've seen in the league. It just wasn't the DSL. I mean, it was very sober. People showed up. There weren't a bunch of games to sit around and watch. You were either playing in a game or the other teams were playing. So the kind of the energy now, though, we did have a lot of rookies who, again, the rookies said, man, it's the best thing I've ever done in Korea. I loved it. And they're back. Most of them are back. And so, I mean, even that was enough to like hook them into the DSL. And this year was like wild. This year was wild, man. And I mean, I guess just for the sake of time, I'll get into it. We played we had a hard time with COVID regulations, and we knew that we were being watched, not because we were foreigners, but because we play baseball differently. We play softball differently. We play ball differently. Now, the Koreans, the regulations were like, you show up, you temperature check everybody, you play your game, and then you leave. But we don't do that. We hang out. We're there all day drinking, and we just sit on a field and rotate the different people who are in. Like, we are our own league. We are not teams of a league coming in to play a game. We are the whole league. The whole league is going to the field and playing all their games for the weekend and then leaving. So we could not flaunt the COVID rules that publicly. And especially the place that we played the year before, it's like a 6-diamond area. There's another baseball diamond right next to us, and then another one right next to that. And so if we are flaunting the rules and then the other guys are upkeeping the rules, then they're gonna tattletale on us. Of course they will. And we would be out of line being so blatant about it. So we have a field called Hyojin Park that is up in the mountains. It is in the valley. It is surrounded by trees. You cannot see it. Even if you know it's there, you may not be able to find it. And I mean, secluded doesn't even begin to paint the picture of this place. It's beautiful. It's AstroTurf. It's very, very expensive, but it is away from everybody. And we just said, you know what? We're going to play every game up there because we're out of the view of the public. And it was an expensive decision that we made. And we ended up making the money back through selling beer at the field and other cocktails and stuff. And we ended up doing a lot of double headers. So instead of just going up there and playing one game and going home, you'd go up there and every team would play 2 games, and we would be there for 12 hours. We'd be there from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. And it was just wild. It was the energy. Toby, I don't know if you ever came up there and just checked it out for a weekend, but the energy was just off the hook. It was back to the old days. And it was great. It was like a lot of pent up energy, but I was very, very proud of running the season in the fall, the year before, but this past season, like getting the DSL back to how most people remember it being in a long, long time ago. It was very, very rewarding to see it play out the way it did.
One of the things that I kept thinking when you were talking about the DSL and the energy and stuff, and I think it's kind of, I didn't go to see this season, the season that just finished, but I started to feel, just as you're talking about that perhaps so many people really needed to have a return of something, something that was normal for them, especially if you've been around for the 14 years and there's never been a year where, the DSL wasn't running or anything. And the idea that after COVID and, now things are a little bit better, for people to, I feel like people needed that, a little bit of normalcy back. And, they managed to get it through the DSL. So kudos to you, which leads me to the next part, which is really talking about Dustin Waters, the coach, the team captain. What is it? The team captain versus Dustin Waters, the commissioner, which is interesting because I remember when I think you did it in both seasons that I played, where you were the coach and the commissioner at the same time. How did you manage both?
They are two distinct positions, and I think it's something people don't realize how kind of they conflict, because that's, as a coach, as a captain, your goal is your team winning.
Right.
And really, that's what a captain does. That's what a good captain does. As a commissioner, your goal is to see the league run smoothly and run well, and all the problems taken care of before anybody realizes there were a problem, to kind of like, proactively address anything that could come up. And I want to make it clear that it's not only me doing this. It's me and there's a couple other captains that are very, very helpful in this endeavor. But as it's like, Commissioner Dustin gets angry at other captains for undermining the rules or cheating or being coy, trying to get away with stuff. But I do it too as a captain. So it's like this weird bifurcation of my own self. And then, just to add on to it a little bit more, there's also the player, Dustin, who plays in the league and is concerned about my own stats. I want to hit more home runs than that guy, than my friend over here. I saw him hit this shot. I'm going to hit this shot, or he's in the outfield, so I'm going to hit it towards him. So there's also like that kind of competitive player along with captain, and those are different roles. And then the commissioner on top of that. And it can get, I feel that I always am on top of it. I always know which role I'm in at every given point. I think for the most part, it's annoying for other people to see me jump from role to role to role.
Is it one of those things where, like, if the role is too complex and you're like, doesn't serve me as a captain, but it does serve me as a commissioner, you step in and you're like, this is what I mean. What's the what am I trying to ask you? Like, what would trump everything? You, Dustin, as a commissioner, or you, Dustin, as a
commissioner trumps it all the time. And I mean, I get upset at other captains, especially captains that I know that they know baseball. And so they'll see something happen that they know their team, it's an out for them, or it goes against their team, but they'll argue it as if they don't know it, or they'll try to say like, oh no, it's the other way because it benefits them in this very specific situation. I never do that. I really do not do that. I will say to the umpires, no, that's not how it is. Like, it's an out on us. And I think because I'm so altruistic, I'm such an angel in that regard. It does really upset me when I see other captains not do that. Like, that's an out. I don't want to get into specific instances because I don't want to call out any captains personally. Although there's one that I'm thinking of that I've had several talks with him about doing it. But I don't believe that I do that. I don't believe that I do that. Hyojin, here's an example this year, Hyojin, that this is not an example of something that actually happened. It's just an example. At Hyojin, the field can be really slippery. So we had a rule where, you don't have to actually land on the base because you may slip, right? As long as your foot kind of, goes over the top of it, we call it a halo rule. As long as you break the halo with your body or with your foot, that's fine. You don't need to actually touch the base. This could be called the Toby rule also, except for you. We're not anywhere near it when you're going around. But anyway, so we had a few times where players didn't touch the base and just went around it. And we had non-captains as umpires. And the non-captains wouldn't have known that we made this rule because we just made it in the captain's meeting. So they were calling it out. They're calling the players out. And the captain, who's the beneficiary of this out, wasn't saying, no, we agreed, that's fine this year. And it just seemed like a cheap, you know what I mean? Like, the ump doesn't know it. You're trying to get one. You're trying to like game the system on this poor ump who's really doing the best they can. And it's disingenuous. I think it lacks integrity.
Yes.
So I try to captain with integrity. And sometimes it does come to the detriment of my team, but I can go to sleep at night because I can say, oh, that was me, the commissioner, who played with such integrity.
Yeah. I mean, it's all, I mean, it's one of those things. If you're a captain as well, your team kind of expects you to fight for every single possible, earned point, the smallest margin you have, 10, 11, 12 people that are looking to you as a captain and saying, come on, you should fight harder for that, so it must be hard for the captains too. It must be hard for the captains. But
I think it's hard for me. I don't think it's hard for them. The Bucks with them, they stop at captain. I go up to commissioner. So I love it, and I take it upon myself I hold myself to that high standard.
Yeah. Well, it's nice. It's nice because I've seen you argue with some captains with a smile on your face and a beer in your hand. So it's always like, I mean, that's kind of the spirit of it. We're having an argument over something that's happening on the field, but here's me telling you with a big smile on my face, and like I'm trying to tell you, like, come on, man, like really, can we bring a little integrity to the thing here? And as a commissioner, you have to put your foot down and saying, actually, I make the final call, right?
Yes, there are times that I do that. I sometimes don't do that, but it would be nice if it was just like a pure like a dictatorship. I would happily accept that. I think that I do know what's best and that I will make the best calls all the time. But some of the things that I would like to have happen going forward is I'd like to see more like individual, like spreading out of duties. I feel that if we could we have like certain, right now we have a group that does the stats, the statistics for the league. And some of them are captains and some of them are not captains. And I would like to see that spread out more. I'd like to see like group of people who want to ump, so the captains don't have to do all the umping, or do like the beer sales, or like the equipment, like taking care of the equipment, setting it up and setting down. Like the more that we can like kind of spread out these duties, takes away some of the hassle that individual captains have to do, and we can get more people involved. I think more people could like take some kind of ownership over the league, more, I'm doing this for the league. I think a lot of people do want to help out, but there's a big step between just being a player and then being a captain. It's almost 0 to 100. It's a lot. But by spreading it out, you could maybe create more ownership, get more people involved, and also have less work for individual captains. But this is the kind of thing that would require me to step down a little bit. I think I'm ready to. I think I'm ready. I think I've done my time. I think I've given what I can give.
Being a commissioner now?
It's a title that I gave myself, and people ran with it.
Did you really?
Kind of. It was, I do feel that it was in fact the role that I had, and I just called it. I claimed it. Now, before me, there were a couple guys. I would say I'm the third iteration. There was the original founders, and they ran it for like 6 years. And then there were two guys that took over after that, and they did it for 2 or 3 years. And then me and another guy kind of took it over at the same time. And he just wanted me to be the face, and he'll do all the accounting and sign up stuff. So he's not the commissioner, I am, but he probably actually does more work than I do. I just get to be the face of it and argue loudly. But there's a lot of criticism that comes with it. And a small example.
That was going to be my next kind of what are some of the difficulties that you've faced as a commissioner over the years?
One of the first things that I did that I'm personally very proud of is I removed all gender specific rules from the league. There used to be different rules for men and women in terms of like how many of each could be on a team, where they're not where they could play, how many needed to be on the field at any given time. where you could play if if a male or female were at bat, and I just did away with all gender specific rules, and it was tough. It took me a couple of years to get it passed. I pitched it for a long time. It was an uphill battle that eventually got done, and now seems obvious, but it wasn't obvious. It was a uphill battle. I'm very proud of that, but that's more of a large decision that I made. Sometimes it can be small, like I'm at Costco on a Wednesday thinking about, what beer the league wants to drink. And I see there's a sale on Heineken, and there's also a sale on whatever, something else, Stella. And if I buy the Stella, I'm going to get people at the field saying, what? You didn't get Heineken? Why did you get the Heineken? And if I get the Heineken, I'm going to get the people saying, you didn't get fucking Stella? What? Heineken's terrible. And so there's small, very, very tiny, almost inconsequential decisions like that. And you're just going to get critiqued on everything that you do.
Yeah.
Whichever way you swing, you're going to get critiqued on it. There's no decision that you could ever make that people are going to unanimously say, yeah, good one, Dustin. So you hear the criticism more than you hear the praise. And I think that when you just start doing it, when you do it for a year or two, your skin is thick enough to take it. And then in year 4 and beyond, you just don't like it. And you wish everybody would just praise you all the time and never criticize you for anything. And so you think, well, screw it, these ungrateful bastards. Maybe I've done enough time.
How do you, obviously, so what you're saying to us is that over the years, your skin has wore thin and thin and thin and thin and thin. That probably means that your level of, patience with people as well is probably like thinning as you go along. But how have you dealt with the criticism?
I don't know that I've dealt with it gracefully, to be honest. Umping too. If I make a call umping and I know I'm right and I'm right, and you turn around and like mutter, ump's out for us today, guys. I used to be able to laugh that off, and now it's almost like, hold on, stop the game. What did you say? So
like,
do you really think that
is that the commissioner stepping up, or is it like the Dustin captain who's now amping the game?
It's everything. Yeah. And some of the previous commissioners are some of my best friends, and they're the ones that tell me, like, the second that you're not enjoying it, step away and have a beer, have somebody else come in there and it's not worth it if you're not enjoying it. And so so the criticism is constant, and I've gotten less and less open to it. But I do think that it's good to have turnover in the leadership role, at least in this league. It's good to have turnover because each new commissioner, quote commissioner, each new captain brings like a vibe, a life, zest for the league, new ideas for expansion. You never want to be complacent. You never want to say what we did last year was perfect, so let's just do that again. And there's always times to get better. So I'll say his name, Jason Greener. I'm probably putting too much pressure on him by doing this, but Greener.
I do know Greener.
I just see this look in his eye. He loves it, and he's so good. He's got it taken care of. He's so well put together and organized, and he's taken over for De Villers, at least for the time being. And I think he's going to be great for the league. And it's knowing that he's stepping up makes me that much more comfortable stepping down. And I think it's really important that the league continue to evolve. I should not want to be the commissioner forever, and that wouldn't help the league.
Yeah. So how many more seasons do you think you have in you before you step down?
I think that I'll continue playing the league. I may even step down being a captain. I'll probably do a lot of the stuff that I did as a commissioner, like help get the fields, and I can speak Korean, so that's basically why I'm the commissioner. And I'm generally organized, which isn't a trait that everybody has. So I will relish being a player, showing up before my game starts, playing the game, kicking back, have everybody else bring the equipment, have everybody else set up the beer, the ice, have everybody else sell it, have everybody else and manage the teams, and tear down the field and throw away the trash at the end of the day. And I can just play my game and leave. I think I've earned it, and I cannot wait. I can't wait to be there.
Yeah.
But I know that what you're doing is more about leadership. And what I want to say to people interested in leadership is, if you're passionate about it, you'll be good at it, and you should do it. And it takes time, but sometimes there's a monetary payoff at the end. And sometimes it just, you pay it in your own flesh and blood and sweat and tears. But if you're passionate about leading something and you see that you're doing good for people, do it. And you're the person for it.
I think one time you've said it to me before. You said it is a labor of love. It's something that it's a passion project for the community, and you've done it for a while now. And what personal qualities do you think you've come out of with?
Oh yeah, that's such a great question. It has made me a better person. Unquestionably made me a better person. There were some issues along the way, and there's some issues that I remember even talking to you about in the office and other people who were in the office at the time, where kind of the message received on my part was, listen, you've decided that you want to be the leader of this thing. You got to act like a leader, and you got to set the tone. And some of these things that were funny or fun, in the past, or that maybe jokes you could tell when you were a player that you didn't carry any weight. Now you're telling those jokes or saying these things is setting a tone for the entire rest of the league. And it's something that I've really taken to heart. And so it's like, that classic, you start from the inside out, you take the stick out of your own eye before the other people's in. And so it really was about me making sure that I was projecting a better image than I was yesterday. I have definitely stumbled along the way. I've said some stupid things over the last year or 2 years. So I'm not like, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but the amount of growth that I've seen in myself just from, embracing the leadership position, it has been large, to say the least.
And worth it.
Oh man, I wouldn't want to go back.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of myself, and I'm proud of where the league is. And I take a lot of credit. People may not give it to me, but I take a lot of joy and credit in the league, where it is now, what it's gone through to get here, especially compared to where it was yesteryear. And I'm very, very proud of the league.
I think it's important. It's important for you to actually, you can't always wait for people to give you credit for the things that you're doing. And if you're aware of the progress that you've made, your contribution, and that it's made the league a better league for everybody, you should give yourself the credit. And I think it's nice that you have done that. I think it's good that you've taken, you've taken the crap, you've taken the good, you've mixed it all together, and you've made the league better than you found it. And even if you were to leave the league today, you'll be proud of the work that you've put in and where the league is at today. And it doesn't matter what people, whether people actually roll out a red carpet and say, hey, Dustin Water, this is great. If they don't do that, I think it's nice that you've given yourself that congratulations and a pat on the shoulder. It's good.
Thank you. Yeah.
You didn't expect me to say that, did you?
I don't know. I don't know what I expected from this. I just, I thank you for saying that though. And of course it'd be nice if more people said it, but I do know I've had enough people that I care about say it to me, that where I feel confident, and I know what I've done, and I'm proud of it. And even like, I started this podcast, so now I can kind of just focus on bringing joy to the league.
Right.
And kind of maybe I can step back but be the media wing. And now I can take pot shots at people the way they've taken pot shots at me all these years.
Tell us about the podcast that you started. I think that's quite important.
It's not a podcast that I really need advertised, or nobody would really enjoy it besides the league. But again, the people in the league, I think, eat it up. I hope they eat it up. because it's such a the league is such a meaningless thing that is a big deal to everybody who plays in it. And so the idea of having like extra content around it, like a podcast, we used to have many podcasts with TV shows, the whole shebang, but we haven't had anything for the last several years, last 2-3 years. So it's nice to have a podcast back. It's nice to know that it's, we like to drop it on the Thursday, so people have like, the end of the week is coming, softball's coming back up on the weekend, let's listen to it, get all the hot gossip, know what all the talking points are, the leftovers from last week, and then what do people expect going into this week. It's great to have guests on, like players. We try to have a different player on every single weekend, maybe somebody who's not Mr. or Mrs. Popular in the league, but maybe somebody who is Mrs. or Mrs. Popular in the league, and be able to kind of set the narrative. So have people talking about the league, but also be the people who are. I have a brilliant co-host, Chris Hebb. I couldn't ask for a better person to co-host a podcast with. He's an absolute genius. And I love every minute of doing it with him. It is, again, a lot of work, but a passion project. And it's another one of those things like the DSL where I don't think people are going to come up and say, "Hey, Dustin, thank you. And we love it." But we are seeing quite a few downloads and people talking about it around the field. So it does make us feel good knowing that people are listening and that we're bringing some joy to them in this way as well.
I think it's also nice that even the people, even though the podcast, the DSL itself has been active for 14 years, so many people have left Korea and they still want to have a little bit of their tentacle back into the life and the things that they love the most, the social events and things that are happening in the league. And if they're listening, which I hope they are, it's a very, very good way to kind of touch base with what's happening locally,
More than you would think are. And I get contacted. Me and Hebsy get contacted by them, which is great. We love it.
Good. And I think that's part of it. It's not just for the people that are playing, but also it's nice that people that have left as well are still interested in knowing what's happening here and still keeping in touch, right? Yeah.
It's just another source of joy, for the league.
Dustin, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us about the Daegu Softball League and especially your leadership. One thing that I wanted to ask you before we finish is, what advice would you give somebody who wants to take on a leadership role? For example, leading a community like sport, based on your experience. What kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think that I would say start by examining your own motives. Lay out in your own, don't fool yourself. What is your motivation in taking charge of this entity? And if it is something that is going to bring you joy and you believe that you will actually enjoy doing, then by all means do it. Or if you have passion about it and it's going to be rewarding to you, then do it. Yeah. And if you do those inner searchings and you find that the motivation is something that isn't going to bring you joy or you're going to feel rewarded for, then maybe let somebody else do it, or find something else. There will be something else out there that you can do that will bring you joy.
Excellent. Thank you very much.